$2.1 trillion. I mean, just let that number sit in your head for a second. We are talking about an $85.7 billion raise with shares pricing at $135. By every metric we're looking at in today's analysis, this is the biggest initial public offering ever.
It is just staggering, right? We're talking about a scale that, well, it completely redefines how the market views this entire sector. You wanted to figure out how this valuation makes any actual sense. And, I mean, that is exactly our mission here today.
Right, because we're tackling this massive contradiction. I mean, SpaceX operates in an industry where, one single technical failure can erase years of confidence.
Oh, absolutely. It is completely unforgiving.
Exactly. And this is a company that routinely and very publicly blows up highly experimental hardware, yet Wall Street is out here valuing it like it is rock-solid strategic infrastructure. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's do it.
Usually, if a business looks like it is literally lighting billions of dollars on fire on a launch pad, investors run the other way. But suddenly, they're being treated like this safe, predictable utility company. How does a company pivot from spectacular fireballs to being viewed as the ultimate blue-chip utility?
Well, it happens because the surface story and the deeper reality have, finally decoupled. For decades, space was essentially just a slow, highly disposable government prestige program.
Right, like launch it and lose it.
Exactly. You built a rocket, you launched it, it fell into the ocean, and you just started all over again.
Yeah.
But SpaceX completely changed that regime. They turned the launch into a repeatable industrial service. So Wall Street isn't valuing a rocket company anymore.
Wait, they aren't?
No, they are valuing the potential toll road to orbit.
Oh, wow. So the rocket isn't actually the core product.
Not anymore, no. The rocket is just the delivery truck now. I mean, think about FedEx. You don't value FedEx based on the physical trucks they own.
Yeah, you value their massive global logistics network.
Exactly. And SpaceX used their launch advantage to build out Starlink, which is their satellite internet network. That network is the actual toll road.
Here's where it gets really interesting. When we were combing through the roadshow projections for today's analysis, the financial engine justifying this $2.1 trillion valuation isn't about selling rocket launches to NASA.
Nope. It is shifting to boring, predictable monthly subscriptions.
Right. They are estimating $18.7 billion in revenue and over 10 million Starlink subscribers. They are using this incredibly high-risk hardware to fund a highly lucrative software-like business model.
It is brilliant, really.
It reminds me of a traditional cell phone provider. You don't make the real money selling the physical steel of the cell tower. You make your money charging everyone a monthly fee to route their data through it.
What's fascinating here is the psychological shift in how we view space revenue.
Yeah.
A rocket launch is a one-time event, Yeah. You get paid once.
Right. It is totally transactional.
Exactly. But a subscription, that is an ongoing relationship. Rockets fire once, but internet bills arrive in your inbox every single month without fail. By creating Starlink, they have basically managed to turn space from a visual spectacle into a daily utility.
But I want to pause on the mechanics of that utility for a second, because this is crucial to understanding the filings in today's analysis. Traditional satellite internet has been around for ages, right? The big clunky dishes that give you terrible lag. Why is this any different?
Well, it comes down to orbital mechanics and latency. Traditional internet satellites sit in geostationary orbit, which is about 22,000 miles above the Earth.
That is really far out there.
It is. And at that distance, it takes a noticeable amount of time for a signal to bounce from your house to space and then back. That creates that terrible lag you mentioned. But Starlink satellites operate in low Earth orbit, just about 300 miles up.
Oh, wow. That is a huge difference.
Huge. The latency is practically zero. It actually rivals terrestrial fiber optic cables.
But the catch is, because they are so close to the Earth, they move much faster across the sky, right? Like, one satellite can't just hover over your house.
Exactly right. To provide continuous internet, you need thousands of satellites constantly handing off the signal to one another. It is a massive swarm. And because they are in low Earth orbit, they experience atmospheric drag.
Meaning they literally fall out of the sky and burn up every 5 to 7 years.
Yes, exactly.
So wait, I was looking through the telecom comparisons earlier, and what trips me up is the capital expenditure. I mean, AT&T lays a fiber cable once and it just stays in the ground.
Right, it is a static asset.
But SpaceX has an ongoing operational need to launch thousands of satellites just to keep the network alive. Most companies would view a constantly depreciating physical asset falling out of the sky as a total nightmare.
Oh, they absolutely would, unless you are the only company on Earth that owns the delivery trucks and can fly them at cost.
Yeah.
That continuous launch requirement actually creates an impenetrable moat.
So the weakness is actually their biggest strength.
Precisely. They are serving rural homes, cargo ships in the middle of the Pacific, commercial aircraft, and emergency disaster zones, where laying physical fiber optic cable is just never going to happen. They are building the infrastructure of the future, but they are doing it in low Earth orbit.
Which brings us to a much heavier reality in today's analysis. If Starlink is a utility for everyday consumers, I mean, that alone is a great business.
It is a fantastic business.
But does it scale to a $2.1 trillion valuation? Looking at the projections, it seems like it only gets to that massive number by becoming a mandatory layer of national defense and global sovereignty.
That is the exact leap Wall Street is making right now. The modern economy is undergoing this massive shift from software apps to physical and digital infrastructure.
Like AI, semiconductor chips, data pipes, and satellites.
Exactly. And within that shift, there is a true villain that governments and corporations are fighting against, which is infrastructure scarcity.
Meaning there just isn't enough capacity to go around, like launch scarcity, spectrum scarcity, orbital congestion.
Right. Every major global power wants capacity in orbit, but space is deeply unforgiving. Physics is incredibly expensive. Escaping Earth gravity well requires an immense amount of energy and precision.
So you can't just fake it.
No, you really can't. To secure national interests today, you need resilient networks in the sky. Think about military drones or naval fleets. If ground communications get wiped out in a conflict or a natural disaster, your country goes dark.
And we have seen Starlink used in disaster zones recently.
Exactly. Starlink's consumer success in those disaster zones naturally caught the attention of the defense sector because it proved the network was basically unkillable from the ground.
But let me push back on this hype for a second. Let's look at this critically. If space communications and rapid launch capabilities are now entirely vital to national power, isn't it wildly dangerous to rely on a single private company for all of it?
That is a very fair point.
I mean, doesn't that make global governments entirely dependent on SpaceX for their backup communications and defense resilience? That sounds less like an investment thesis and more like a terrifying geopolitical bottleneck.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, your pushback highlights exactly what is driving the valuation. That geopolitical bottleneck is precisely what investors are buying exposure to.
Wait, really? They see the bottleneck as a feature, not a bug.
Absolutely. They are buying defense resilience and AI infrastructure. Right now, a country that cannot cheaply reach orbit, deploy satellites quickly, or maintain its own backup communications is fundamentally weaker in the next global infrastructure race.
That makes sense.
And the market realizes that SpaceX is essentially the only entity with the proven scale to offer that security on demand.
And scale in space is brutally hard. I was reading through the capital expenditure charts for today's analysis, and it is honestly eye-watering.
It is brutally hard and intensely capital intensive, which means the barrier to entry for anyone else trying to offer that same security is astronomically high. You can't just write some code in a garage and disrupt SpaceX.
No, you need billions of dollars, launch pads, specialized metallurgy, and a high tolerance for blowing things up while you learn the physics.
Exactly. You have to pay the iron price, so to speak.
So with so much global power and investor capital resting on one company's shoulders, what happens if they stumble? Because this IPO essentially marks the moment space became a true financial asset class.
It really does. It is repricing everything across the board. Suppliers, telecom rivals, space startups, they all have a new benchmark now.
But to maintain it, the spending required is immense. I mean, funding the rockets, the ground stations, the AI infrastructure.
It is a massive high-wire act. And the biggest variable in all of this, the true linchpin of their economic model, is Starship.
Let's break that down, because Starship gets mentioned a lot in the filings, but the why is what's really important. The Falcon 9 rockets they currently use are amazing, but they are only partially reusable, right?
Correct. The first stage lands, which is still a miracle of engineering, but they essentially throw away the second stage.
Right, so there is still a lot of waste.
Exactly. But Starship is designed to be fully and rapidly reusable. Both the massive booster and the spacecraft itself are meant to fly, land, refuel, and fly again.
Just like a commercial airliner.
Yes, think about commercial airlines. Air travel is affordable because we don't throw away the Boeing 737 after a flight from New York to London.
That would be an incredibly expensive ticket.
Exactly. We just refuel it and load new passengers. Starship brings that exact airline model to spaceflight, with a payload capacity that completely dwarfs anything in human history.
So if Starship delivers low-cost heavy lift at scale, the economic growth story actually works. They can launch the thousands of satellites they need for a fraction of the cost, maintaining that toll road.
Yes, but if those timelines slip, the entire financial model becomes much, much harder to justify. They are burning a massive amount of cash to build this future.
And they aren't operating in a vacuum, no pun intended. They have fierce competition out there. I mean, look at Amazon's Kuiper project. Amazon is pouring billions into building their own satellite constellation to rival Starlink.
They are, but Amazon is facing that exact infrastructure scarcity we just talked about.
Yeah.
Amazon doesn't have a fully reusable rocket fleet of their own yet.
So how are they getting their satellites up there?
Well, they are having to buy up launches from traditional providers, and in some cases, they're even having to buy launches from SpaceX to get their own competing satellites into orbit.
Wow. That is a massive structural disadvantage.
It really is.
It is like trying to build a rival delivery service, but having to rent literally all your trucks from FedEx. Plus, there's the double-edged sword of the government contracts we touched on earlier. Yes, the defense sector provides massive anchor revenue, but it also brings intense regulatory scrutiny and massive political risk.
Oh, absolutely. The spotlight is blinding.
So what does this all mean? Because at over $2 trillion, it feels like SpaceX can't just be successful anymore. They have to execute flawlessly, continuously for years. Are investors dangerously pricing in future dominance before the hardest battles, like actually making Starship work at mass scale, have even been fought?
This raises an important question about the physical realities of space. Look, SpaceX does not own the sky. They may be the leader right now, but they still have to navigate aging satellites, rapidly growing orbital debris risks, and an increasingly crowded communication spectrum.
Right, the sky's getting pretty full.
Exactly. There's only so much room in low Earth orbit before the risk of collisions becomes a catastrophic issue. Markets love to price in best-case scenarios.
But physics doesn't care about market valuations.
Physics and orbital dynamics do not care at all. Space is unforgiving. One major collision in orbit could cascade and threaten the entire network.
It really is the ultimate tension. They could be one of the most important infrastructure companies in human history and still be completely vulnerable to overvaluation if they miss a single step.
Exactly. This IPO is not just a standard stock market event. It is a public vote on the future of orbit itself. The company is being priced as a vertically integrated platform. Launch, satellites, user terminals, internet service, national defense, it is all in one package.
Bringing today's analysis full circle, the valuation is absolutely outrageous when you look at the immense technical and capital risks involved. We are talking about defying gravity, dodging orbital debris, massive capital burn, and building untested rockets.
It sounds crazy when you list it all out like that.
It does. But it is perfectly logical if you believe SpaceX is truly going to become the undisputed highway to low Earth orbit. You aren't buying a rocket company, you are buying the highway itself.
And everyone, whether it is consumers, corporations, or governments, has to pay the toll to use it.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over as we wrap up. Look up at the sky tonight and ask yourself, is SpaceX's massive valuation the dawn of a completely new, essential infrastructure era? Or is it the absolute clearest sign that market hype has finally escaped gravity and reached orbit? Because the reality is the next trillion-dollar platform might not be built on Earth at all.